Why do you think this transformation has happened to India?
In many ways, all over the world, you see the triumph of insularity. Just in the last session, Yunus was talking about Brexit. He was talking about the victory of Trump in the US general elections. I think what may have happened was that for about 2 decades, from 1989-90 up to about 2007-2008, we had the contemporary phase of globalization. And while there were many achievements during that 2-decade period, once there was a generalized crisis of the nation state, I think that there was a very dark underbelly as well of this process of globalization, practically in every society and in every country. And so, as a result, we are witnessing today something of a backlash in people turning inwards. And whenever this happens, whenever there is a sense of insecurity or resentment among those who see themselves as majorities inside a particular country, whether defined by race or by religion, there is the rise of chauvinism, xenophobia. The immediate targets, the immediate scapegoats are those who are called illegal immigrants. And it's very common these days to cloak prejudice against minorities in the language of citizenship. It's been happening in the United States, it's happening all over Europe, it's happening in our own country. And yet, I think it would be a mistake to cede what is a very powerful emotive force, nationalism, to those who are ultra-nationalists, who are inward-looking, votaries of Swadeshi. And that's why it's extremely important to remember that our Swadeshi movement here in Bengal did not just last from 1905 to 1908. It continued into the first decade of the second decade of the 20th century. And even in 1905, there's so much that we hear about Bharat Mata. We are all supposed to be compelled to shout victory to Mother India, Bharat Mata ki jai. But just consider the most insignificant, iconic image, the visual evocation of Bharat Mata, which initially was Bongo Mata, Abanindranath Tagore's famous painting. Now, this was executed in the Japanese wash technique, which Abanindranath Tagore learned from Yokoyama Taikan, who in turn had been sent by Okakura to Calcutta and lived in Jurashako with the Tagore family. So I think it is significant that the iconic image of our nation as mother was executed in the Japanese wash technique. And then, of course, after 1908, all of our Swadeshi figures, intellectuals, had very major international itineraries. They went all over the world, not just to Europe, but to the United States of America, to Turkey, to Japan, and so on. And even those who you would regard as Swadeshi purists, if you will, think of Lala Lajpat Rai. He went to the United States of America. He befriended W.E.B. Du Bois. He wrote a book titled The United States of America, in which he discussed questions of race and caste in a comparative vein. And later on, he went to Turkey and Japan as well. And practically every major Indian intellectual, scholar, political leader of the Swadeshi era, or those who had been molded by the Swadeshi ethos, had an openness to the world. They traveled the world. If they were not able to travel the world physically, they traveled in their imagination. And that is the spirit. And that's why, in fact, Shukantada was asking me, I know what you're going to try and do with the 1810s and the 2010s. What are you going to say about the 1910s? And I find the 1910s absolutely fascinating. On the one hand, there was a National Council of Education that gave anywhere between 30 and 40 scholarships to students. And these students went, the largest number, by the way, went to the United States, Narendranath Sengupta being one of them. The second highest number went to Germany. Usually in the United States, they studied the humanities and the social sciences, including psychology, as I pointed out. In Germany, it was the basic sciences that they went for, typically. A few were sent to the United Kingdom to study industrial engineering. One or two also went to Japan, because Tokyo was also quite a magnet for international students in those days. So it is, that kind of spirit, স্বদেশী আন্তর্জাতিকতা, এটার কথা আমাদের একটু মনে রাখা দরকার. So that's why I was deliberately repeating the phrase Swadeshi internationalism, because that is part of our history. That was the spirit of the 1910s, exactly 100 years ago. And not Swadeshi nationalism that is narrow and inward-looking.
Professor Bose, I hope that you can be here for a little bit interaction with the audience. I'm sure that there are many more questions. Thank you very much. Marsh.
Thank you, Professor Bose, for your fascinating speech. We would now like to present you with a small token of gratitude.
Our next speaker this afternoon is Professor Shukanta Choudhury, who is an alumnus of this university, Presidency College, and was actually a teacher in Presidency College from 1973 to 1991, subsequent to which he joined the Jadavpur University until his superannuation in 2010. During the period he was in Jadavpur University, he actually set up a school, a separate school, of which he was the director from 2004 to 2010. That was called the School of, the School of Cultural Texts and Records. Professor Shukanta Choudhury essentially is a person of English literature and specializes in the Renaissance period. He has compared the links, he's drawn up the links and parallels between European and Bengal Renaissance and has written several books, one of which is called The Infirm Glory, Shakespeare and the Renaissance Image of Man. I'm tempted to say that Professor Choudhury is a polymath of the humanities. He is translated Rabindranath Tagore, Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay and also the nonsense poems of Sukumar Roy into English, which those of us who have read Sukumar Roy will find it almost impossible, but you should take a look at the translations that he's done. He's also written a play, and that play was enacted by Nandikar under the direction of Rudra Prasad Sengupta, and the play was called Jaha Chai. Today he's going to talk to us. The title of his talk is Harnessing the Humanities. And I really, on behalf of the Presidency College, Presidency University, we are absolutely delighted and honored to have Professor Shukanta Choudhury talk to us on harnessing the humanities. Professor Choudhury, 35 to 40 minutes, depending on when you finish, 10 to 5 minutes.
Actually, the introduction there is slightly outdated, but never mind. Thank you very much, Professor Bojumdar, for that very kind introduction. And needless to say, many thanks to Presidency University for the honor of asking me to speak here. It's a very great pleasure, the slightly destabilizing one, to return to my alma mater and this wonderful new guys. And must congratulate Professor Lohia and all the colleagues for having brought about this transformation. This is a little disorienting to us who saw it, this more shabbier, but still, even then, very lively guys until 25 years ago. Anyway, my title today is Harnessing the Humanities, a title that may seem perverse, because a harness confines and controls. It impedes the expansion of the mind and uplifting of the spirit, traditionally credited to the humanities, even more than other branches of inquiry, as Shugoto has so eloquently just brought out to us. Friedrich Schiller has a poem where the winged horse Pegasus is put in harness to the misfortune of both the creature and the people tormenting him. Finally, a young man with a lute sends him soaring into the skies. That is an allegory of the function of the arts. The term humanities originates historically in the new curriculum of European universities in the Renaissance as a study of more humanly oriented texts, literae humaniores, ancient Greco-Roman literature, history and philosophy in particular, in contrast to divinity or theology based on the word of the Christian God. Today, the term humanities embraces the many diverse disciplines studying the arts and patterns of mental and social behavior. To harness the humanities, it might seem, is to stunt and abuse the material. That is often adjudged the unhappy task of the academic student of the humanities. Jivanananda Das has an unsparing metaphor for the literary scholar's pursuit. Not only does the scholar not write poetry, he dabbles among the worms infesting the entrails of dead poets. Mrito Kobider Krimi Khete. I think all Bengalis will remember that devastating image. Actually, every scholar in the field must have felt like endorsing this description at some point in their career, and even more damningly, they might unknowingly have matched it. But worms, after all, are living creatures in their own right. So can they bring life to the scholar's dismal pursuit? In what follows, I will talk chiefly about the sphere of the humanities with which I am concerned, namely literary studies. But literature being a term of very uncertain meaning, I don't know what it means. And I almost feel like saying I challenge anybody to do so, but there are people in the audience who might take up the challenge successfully, so I won't. But anyway, it's a tricky term. Okay? So I prefer to call it the study of verbal texts. We could have called it textual studies, but unfortunately the